Okay. And this is a question about the formula.
Yes.
In the formula, you talk about following our most exciting path as often as possible without expectation of outcome. Can I gently say that that's easier said than done? You've nearly perfected evolved states of being, but we as humans struggle with this for many reasons, mainly because of all the shoulds we face. We need to make money to pay bills, and many of us are in jobs that don't bring us joy or excitement. Daily chores aren't thrilling, and relationship struggles make it difficult to find passion. Are you suggesting we abandon societal norms and just do whatever excites us in the moment? I'm struggling with the formula and would like to know how to make it practical and effective. Your version feels a bit unrealistic given our societal constraints. I'd love to drop all the shoulds, but I'm fairly certain I'd be evicted by the end of the month.
As you humans say, there is a lot to unpack in that question because there are several different directions that that question took that need to individually be addressed. First of all, no, we are not saying that you should drop everything. As we have often and always said, if you have a belief system that you cannot be supported by your passion, then you have to honor your beliefs and continue to do whatever it is you are doing that you believe is necessary to support you in life, even if it's not representative of your passion, until such time as you learn that your passion can support you by at least giving it an opportunity to prove that to you by acting on your passion as often as you possibly can. The second thing to unpack in that question is you are defining a lot of things that you could find more exciting ways to do, but defining them in ways that are not exciting for you. When you talk about the idea of, oh, chores that have to be done in physical reality, you're coming in with the idea of a negative definition of those things when there may actually be ways to do many of those things that are truly necessary for physical survival in ways that are more vibrationally compatible with who you are and would actually be more fun, more enjoyable. So you have to use your creative imagination to figure out what the right way is for you to do the things that you believe are absolutely necessary for you to thrive in physical reality. Again, you have to rearrange some of your definitions and you have to expand your definition of what support you actually need in any given situation or any given moment, because it's not always the kind of support that you think you need, especially with regard to the idea that you are now referring to of being evicted by not paying your rent, which means in your mind, I need money. But again, even though that may generally be true in your society, there are still ways to mitigate some of that through communication with those to whom you may owe the money, because again, communication is one form of abundance, and sometimes just communicating with that person and letting them know what your circumstance and situation is. In other words, including them in the process that you may be going through that finds you coming up a little short may actually give them the opportunity to be generous and say, all right, I'll give you extra time, or you don't have to pay me right now, or all sorts of other things that they may come up with that you may not have considered possible, simply because you're not even willing to investigate that idea with your imagination and definitions being lower than they could be. So again, it's all about the circumstances, the situations, and what definitions you give them. We are not giving you anything that is actually unrealistic. These things do work. And the very fact that you opened the question with the concept that it is unrealistic or that it is difficult for you says a lot about what you believe to be true. And that's fine if you want to hold on to those beliefs. All we are suggesting is that at least you give yourself an opportunity, when possible, in your schedule to make time to act on your passion to the point where over time, at whatever pace you're comfortable, you can allow your passion to prove to you that it can support you in many more ways, even better than what you're doing now. Don't necessarily give up the things you're doing if you don't believe that your passion can support you. Of course not. So the idea is for you to determine the pace that you're comfortable with, but give yourself an opportunity to let your passion prove to you that it can support you. At least go that far.
Okay. Now, this person is asking, saying that they used to be happy and excited in life. I suddenly lost my excitement about everything. I lost the joy inside me without understanding why. And despite extensive personal development and trying various permission slips, they still feel joyless. I've lost the hope that this will change. I can't pinpoint any negative beliefs. I feel confident, worthy, and deserving of joy. I usually do what I feel like doing in the moment, but it doesn't feel like true excitement. What can I do to reconnect with authentic joy and excitement?
Well, you may not have negative beliefs to let go of, but you may have erroneous definitions to let go of, because it sounds like you have a certain expectation of how you're supposed to feel doing certain things that you choose to do. There is nothing that says that you have to be jumping up and down all the time with absolute giddiness to experience the idea of acting on your passion. Do not misunderstand the definition of those words. A state of absolute calm and absolute peace can also be representative of the idea of acting on your passion. So the first thing you might want to do is let go of the way you think, let go of the way you expect you're supposed to feel by choosing to do the things that you do choose to do, and just see if you're entering a new state, a new level of appreciation and gratitude and peace and calm and tranquility and contentment, which in and of themselves can be variations of the feeling that you could associate with acting on your passion. It doesn't mean you have to be walking down the street and laughing your head off or being on fire all the time.
Thank you. Okay, this one is, how do you handle waiting for an uncontrollable outcome, especially when others pressure you for answers or plans depend on it? How can you influence such a decision indirectly and stay positive when action isn't possible?
Well, first of all, we will have to assume that by your term uncontrollable outcome, that you may be talking about the idea of dropping insistence. That isn't clear in your question. Nevertheless, if you have developed a plan for something to theoretically occur, remember that all plans need to be adaptable. In other words, a plan should contain within it the ability to change the plan where necessary, to go with the flow, to go with the currents, to go with what happens, with what changes. So there needs to be some flexibility in there. And then you may find there are things you can act on if you're not too rigid about exactly the way you think the plan should proceed. So you might need a little bit more flexibility in what you call a plan that can give you more options of what outcomes could happen that could still serve the same purpose, that could still feel like you have arrived at the conclusion that is necessary for everyone concerned.
So maybe another example of that would be a situation where someone's child was taken hostage and they're just waiting and waiting for word or that the person would be released. So they would feel very much like it was an uncontrollable situation and they have tremendous emotional
If that's
investment.
what this person meant by uncontrollable,
I'm using that as an example.
you're using it as a different example.
Yes, it can be. Yes.
All right. So what are you asking?
How do people under those kinds of stressful situations where the outcome is of such great import and at the same time they don't have control, what is the state of being to choose to ride that kind of a uncontrollable outcome type thing?
Well, the first step would be to understand that even though it may seem you have no control over the situation, you always have control over your state of being, no matter what's going on. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens. That's the main principle. So staying in a state of being, I'm not saying you have to be happy that someone has been abducted. But staying in a stable state, a potentially positive state, or at the very least a neutral state, can allow you to be able to observe synchronicities that will come to you that can lead to solutions that would be beneficial for all. So you have to learn the lessons involved. You have to understand that it may be something that's part of your life path to bring you a lesson you need to learn how to deal with these things in a way that can be more constructive than what you're afraid of. So again, of course, it will always depend upon the specific situation and the specific circumstances and conditions of that situation. Even though you have posed a general question, you have to look at the specifics of what's going on, who's involved, what it is they hope to gain, and all of those things in order to allow synchronicity to direct your attention to specifically what can be done and specifically what actions can be taken. But the only way you're going to receive that information is by, at the very least, remaining in a neutral state, if not fully a positive state, knowing that you will be given the information you need to move forward in a constructive and positive way to learn the lessons that need to be learned and allow for a more positive and constructive outcome for all concerned.
And also the idea of being under such a stressful situation, and then perhaps the person falls out of the neutral state and goes into a negative state. It seems like it's a lot about, is it controlling your thoughts, or what thoughts will you allow, or how can people navigate
All right.
things where
All right. Well, watch your language and how you define that, because people do not fall out of states. They choose to be in one state or another, even if that choice is unconscious. So again, they have to get in touch with their belief systems as to why they would choose to go into a state that they don't prefer about it. The idea is, again, if you understand how things work, you will know that if you truly desire some kind of a positive outcome, then staying in the neutral or positive state is going to give you the best opportunity to do that. Choosing to go into a fear-based state will not. Therefore, why would you choose it if the outcome is so dire? If the need for the outcome being positive is so important, why would you choose to go into a state that reduces the probability of having a positive outcome? All that takes is an understanding of how energy works and staying in the energy state that increases the probability of a positive outcome.
so it has to do with your conviction of how things work.
It has
And
to do with an understanding, if you want to call it conviction, fine, but a true understanding and a clear understanding of how you create your reality, what your life path choices are all about in terms of how it helps you learn and grow. You have to understand how it works. And when you understand how it works, no other choice but to stay in a neutral or positive state will make sense.
right. So this person is asking, how do we tell the difference when we should help someone versus leaving them to be on their own journey?
If they are in your life and appear to need assistance, then you have attracted them through your own synchronicity to at least offer them the possibility of receiving assistance from you. You can always, again, suggest to them ways in which they may improve their situation. But after you have delivered that information, unless they give you any kind of signal that they want more assistance with that and more clarity or understanding of how to apply that in their lives, if they don't do that, then you have been given a signal that you have given them all the information they're willing to take, and you can move on. So the fact that they're in your life can be a signal that at least they may be willing to have you give them the option. And whether they use it today or tomorrow or a year or 10 years from now is not the point. The point is, if they're in your life and they appear to need help, then synchronicity has told you that there may be something you can do to at least give them information that they will be able to use at some point in their life. So at least make the attempt up to the point where it seems that they no longer wish your assistance. They'll let you know, either through their body language or their language. they'll let you know that's enough. They'll go away. They'll tell you to go away. They'll tell you to stop trying to help them. Something will let you know that you have given them everything they can handle, everything they can absorb. But at the very least, attempt to offer them something you believe in your heart of hearts may actually benefit them. That's the best you can do anyway.
Okay, and this individual is saying that they've lived a very difficult and unsafe life for so long that even though they understand your teachings, they struggle to implement them. How can they truly believe that they are safe and that everything will be okay? They can't seem to
By
let go.
understanding the concepts. They don't understand them. They may have a mental comprehension of the concepts that we're delivering, but clearly they don't understand them in the degree that they need to again realize how things actually work, because they are still choosing to struggle, still choosing to experience difficulty. So it must benefit them in their mind, in their belief system, somehow to continue to do so. Maybe they don't believe they can learn the lessons they need to learn any other way. They have to examine their belief systems and find out what benefit they're getting about continuing to choose to struggle through their lessons. They can always learn to process those challenges in ways that they can still learn the lessons in more positive, creative, and constructive ways. So they don't really understand the concepts, at least not clearly enough that they're willing to choose other ways and use their creative imagination to find the path that works for them, that is not so difficult and not so stressful. They must be getting something out of what they're experiencing as difficulty and stress.
Yes, I mean, you've talked about negative beliefs, and it sounds like some of the questions that we're getting are about people feeling like they can't control the negative beliefs that they're hearing in their head and they're buying into them. Is there anything you could suggest regarding that?
Yes, but you see, that's one of the beliefs itself. I can't control this. I can't help but buy into it. That's a negative belief. So they have to pay attention to the fact that that dialogue in their head is coming from the negative belief as well. It's one of the quote unquote tricks that negative beliefs have, is to convince you that there's nothing you can do, that it's an automatic function you just can't help. Therefore, they have to learn to identify even that language, even the voices in their head about how they can't do anything about it, as something coming from the negative belief.
Hi, Bashar. It's really exciting to communicate with you in this way.
Good day, good day. It is exciting for us as well.
So, my first question is about astral activities and what people are doing together in preparation for contact on the higher levels. I had a really, really lucid dream where I was going into some sort of courtyard and I was with lots of people from all walks of life, such as doctors, some politicians, some religious people, farmers even, literally every walk of life. And I remember sort of standing next to somebody and asking and saying to them, wow, with these sorts of people here, we're really going to make some progress moving forward towards contact. I was just wondering if you could share your reflection on that experience and kind of where we are at the moment.
All right. Understand, of course, as we have said, in spirit, before you incarnate, you plan out, generally speaking, and sometimes very specifically, your physical life path. But your physical life path is intertwined with all other life paths. So in astral form, many times you will reconnect with all of the others who you have agreed to intertwine with in their life paths with yours, and you will assess what is going on. You will allow yourselves to congregate in a way so that you can allow yourselves to adjust your energies and frequencies to make sure that the life path blueprints you have all agreed shall unfold in physical reality, are still moving forward in that way. Agree to make whatever adjustments energetically or physiologically are necessary in your blueprint for the things to unfold as you have all concurred and agreed that they shall. So many times in astral form, you will have these so-called conclaves to make sure you are all still moving forward together, that everything is coherent and cohesive, and it will unfold in physical reality and manifest in physical reality as you all intended. That is what is going on in that case.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yes.
My next question is about step 2 of the social experiment. One of the aspects talked about is meditation. So I've been sort of really enjoying getting into sort of doing about an hour or 45 minutes a day of meditation, sometimes more. And what I've started to discover is an energy that comes down through either my crown or the pituitary gland, and it's almost like a quasi-physical energy, it feels like, and it kind of filters down into my head and makes me feel very deeply relaxed, and also seems to emphasize my psychic abilities and things I can pick up and visions and that kind of thing.
Yes.
When with this sort of experience, sometimes I can get, it almost feels like a hole is opening up in the center of my head, and my consciousness is kind of getting pulled sometimes towards other consciousness. Could you just help me understand what's happening?
All right. Again, remember, your physical self exists at the center of your soul. It's like you are an energy sphere, that is your soul, and you have certain vibrational patterns that condense in the center of the soul to create this little crystalline solidified version of those energy patterns that you represent as the physical personality. So when you do things that allow you to be back in touch with the vibration of your greater self, your higher mind, your soul, spirit, same thing, you feel it as an energy coming down into you, because that's how you relate to the idea of physical reality, as above, so below. But what's really happening is you are expanding and softening the idea of that concentration of yourself as a physical personality, and starting to soften and expand back toward the idea of the soul. And so it does feel like the opening of a hole, because you are expanding, you're opening up, you're allowing more of your soul to express itself through the physical personality, through the physical form. That's what you're experiencing, is the expansion of your bandwidth, the expansion of your energy, expressing more of who you are as a soul, so that you can use and apply it in your physical reality in more effective and synchronistic ways.
So when we move forward and our vibration increases, and let's say hypothetically we're at a time in the future where we're having the beginnings of contact, will that sort of state of being and those sorts of feelings be much more sort of stable and in place during each of our days, kind of thing? Something we'd be used to?
Yes, you'll get used to it.
Right, okay. Well, thank you so much for clarifying everything today.
It is our passion and our pleasure. We thank you for the co-creation. Aveo. Good day.
Too.
Hello, Bashar. I've got a quick question. I do have a real reality in my physical life, and I do have a parallel reality in my mind, which also exists from time to time with another person, let's say. So my question is, how can I change my realities, my delusional reality? How can I bring it, and can I bring it into my real reality to substitute one into another one? Is that possible? Thank you.
You may be picking up on the idea of something on your life path that will manifest at some point in the future. But again, the idea is you will not manifest anything from a parallel reality that isn't relevant for the life path that you chose. It might be symbolic of your ability to be more of yourself, as opposed to actually attracting a manifestation of a parallel reality. It might be simply something you're using to inspire you to do so. But again, if it is part of your life path that you planned out as a soul, then ultimately you may be using the idea of tapping into a parallel reality to strengthen and reinforce your capability to manifest what you have already planned out as a blueprint for your life path here, to become your version of what that person in that parallel reality represents to you energetically.